So last week, I started getting phone calls from this young journalist who, and I would like to point out one aspect. So at one point, so his idea is he heard a rumor that Second Harvest was no longer going to give Funab Bombs any food, and his understanding was that the reason that we were going to go to Saturday and Sunday is because Second Harvest cut us off. And when I asked him where the rumor came from, he got really upset. So then I explained, I said, we made a decision 3 years ago that when St. Francis opened, that we would then go back to filling the gap on Saturdays and Sundays. A year ago, because we were starting to burn out, we made a decision that we would go at least 1 year. And then we've been asking St. Francis what's going on, and they thought the construction in their dining hall would be done mid-March, and that they would start serving hot meals instead of the bag lunch. So I said, look, we started to do this 7 days a week specifically because the senior meal at Loudon Nelson was no longer happening because of the lockdown. And he had never heard of Loudon Nelson. He had no idea what Loudon Nelson Community Center was. So I found that really interesting that they chose somebody that didn't know anything about the community to be the reporter, and he was funneled the information, what it looks like he was funneled the information either by the city manager or now in reading the article about it by Fred Keeley. And I don't know how many people read the article, but essentially what they're saying is they're going to start, they've been cool with, they've been laying low with harassing homeless people or, ticketing people and enforcing the anti-homeless laws that are on the books. And now they're going to start enforcing those anti-homeless laws. And they also, I got from my conversation with the reporter Chris and from an email from the chief of police before the email that kicked us out of Garage 10, that he wanted to meet with us to see if we could find a new location when we go to weekends so that we could stop serving food downtown. So that's what so those are the things that led me to believe that, and also there were reports that a large number of police went through the Pogonip, and when I questioned Bernie, he goes, well, we're just going there to see what's happening, but I get a sense now from the Monday article, Lookout, that they're going to figure that that they realize they're going to get complaints. There's going to be all kinds of problems. The trash is building up, as Helga I think can attest to from her recent visit, and there's no sanitation out there. So that at some point there's a possibility that the police will make an effort to drive people out of the Pogonip and off of Route 9 into nowhere. And then another point that was really frustrating in that article was it was claimed that all the homeless were offered shelter, and they were just shelter resistant and didn't want to take up all the great bed space that they did provide for everybody, and so you could tell that the young reporter was just basically just doing what the city said to paint the picture of and he was being used by the government, sadly. I think he's a nice kid, but he just was being used. So that's the basic outline and what potentially is, looks like what is happening. So there's two broad areas, I think, of discussion. One of them is how to respond to a possibility of the police either sealing off the town clock or giving us another cease and desist order. One other thing is I got a call from Holy Cross Pantry viciously attacking us for just using the homeless. and his point was, we are not gonna give you any, we're not gonna share food with you, because you're just, you should need to behave. And, so I call it, that would be the manager of Holy Cross Food Pantry.
Okay. Was you guys here at the meeting last night?
That was, actually, that was Phil, who thought that the manager would cooperate with us, and if we ever needed extra rice and beans from Second Harvest, we could get it through him. And they're probably my understanding is they're the largest recipient, or one of the largest recipients of food from Second Harvest, and Food Not Bombs was the second largest recipient of food from Second Harvest, of any of the agencies. So anyway, so then we have the issue of one of the young men at the meeting on Monday talked about his girlfriend getting sepsis and having her foot amputated, and they're living up in the Poganip, and they're freaking out that they don't have sanitation and they don't have trash pickup. And then one of our volunteers, Dawn, was trying to get food up there, and so it's sort of two things. What do we do about? This is my suggestion. It could be more suggestions, But broadly speaking, can we help the people up in the Route 9 and the Poganips in some way before they get evicted? Because they're looking for water, they're looking for food, now they're looking for dry clothing, and how do we respond? Do we have a plan on how to respond in case the city gets aggressive about trying to share food downtown? Because in the way they were talking, it would be, hassling us no matter where we were, according to Chris. He said we were ruining business on Pacific Avenue by serving the food at the town clock.
That's not true.
Of course it's not. Yes.
I'll just say a few things. One, I went to a job interview this last summer at a very fancy gourmet food place, and they were like, oh, a lot of people are moving away because of the homeless people here. And I said, well, maybe those are the people we want to move away. I didn't get the job, thank you. But I was just like, come on, is this what Santa Cruz is about? And I think there are many, many people here that support us. I mean, I'm late coming on. I had some health issues this last year that kept me from coming out, but I've been out this last week, and I see the community so supportive. I mean, we're getting amazing donations constantly of non-cooked food.
Yeah.
Obviously those are people that support Food Not Bombs. And we're creating community for people who have no community.
Correct.
I mean, what we're doing is essential. And I'm really determined to be out there. I've never been arrested. I don't want to be arrested. I don't even know what it means to get arrested. Am I in jail forever, or if I don't bail myself out? But anyway, I just, thank you for doing this, and, I'm determined to help this continue on.
Great. So maybe at some point I should describe the arrest scenario
I
that
would
occurs in
appreciate
Santa Cruz. Yes, Alicia.
So I think what you're saying, after hearing you, is that we have several different aspects and logistics to discuss. One, how do we get mutual aid, including water and clothing up to the people at the Poganip. I can get clothes from Gray Bears, for one thing. And then two, what do we do about what if the clock tower gets shut down? And what are the logistics of moving to the courthouse parking lot or the county area right there? I was thinking for one. And then we probably might want to talk about, resistance. Resistance efforts, and, if people are willing to get arrested, what that looks like. If the police were to come, how does everybody react to that? Because if you only have a few minutes and the police are there to shut things down, there are some direct actions that can be taken really quickly. Everybody could link arms and say, we're refusing to leave. There are some things that can be non-violently done in a quick moment that might, give steps 2 and 3 a chance.
I can do a direct response on the county. They said, fuck you. So we will be instantly arrested if we get anywhere around the courthouse. And that's what happened last time I tried to set up, last two times I tried to set up there during the pandemic, I had sheriff's department all over me.
I might only have a few minutes at my age, and I don't want to spend them in jail. So, if people want to get arrested, that's all very fine, because maybe they're newbies to jail. But I'm not gonna go out there and get arrested, because like I say, I'll be 69 this year, and I don't wanna spend my last few minutes in jail. But there is people here that are a lot younger than me, and they can ride that ride. And I really appreciate it. They step forward and say, yeah, we'll go out there, because it is a good cause. I'm not saying it's not a good cause. And this morning when I picked up the pans and the stuff out of the van, the trash and everything in there, the food that was going, I mean, it was food that was left over in the pans. Some guy that works at the lumber or the garden center there says, oh, you're moving that van and that trailer. Well, that's good. It's been there 3 days. I says, yeah, but it's not bothering anybody, is it? And he says, no, but it's been there 3 days. I says, well, I guess we'll move it when we get a ticket. And he says, oh, no, his attitude all of a sudden changed. And he says, no, you guys do a good thing. I like what you guys are doing. I was just letting you know it's been there 3 days. I said, all right, thank you.
Beautiful.
So the parking laws say you may park for 72 hours.
We're not in the parking lot.
No, I'm just saying that parking
Law.
law.
Yes, Elise.
Thanks. Well, I've been organizing with different chapters of Food Not Bombs and many other community organizations for decades. And I see this as yet another chapter in the oppression of homeless people. And as much as it's extremely bad, we've been here many times before. And so I just want to say that as somebody who's been a member of community unions and labor unions and collective action and collaborative efforts, I think that we need to build an actual union with actual members, that is, people who come to political meetings. I am absolutely convinced that we need to have an organization where the members talk and discuss issues and politics, come to decisions for each other, and not just have a few heads. We are to be a union, and I hope a democratic union, and that instead of every time there's a crisis, we all be reactive. Let's, for example, somebody here was mentioning the narrative against homeless people, the neighbors. I heard the same things at every meeting. My point is, we should be organizing now into the future and building a strong political union that defends the homeless, that supports the homeless, that has a membership that we can draw from instead of the same people at the meeting. And the reason that I am angry is because I have worked for 27 years as an organizer. I have not made I have gone broke doing this, but it's my passion because I want to see us change the narrative and change the situation in the fourth wealthiest city in the world, which is what Santa Cruz is, and the wealthiest nation in the world. I want us, instead of having the same people make the same decisions over and over, that we have a pool of members to draw from so that when we have a problem, we can call people up like other organizations do. We have a telephone tree, or we put out the word on social media and say, look, come to this meeting, we're going to have a vote, we're going to make decisions.
So right now, there's 3 cities that are under attack by the governments for serving for Food Not Bombs serving free food, and Houston, West Palm Beach, and Santa Cruz. So it's becoming a pattern this month. It's unlikely on Saturday or Sunday that we will necessarily get arrested. We're going to probably get a cease and desist order at some point, like they did before, and they potentially may end up putting a fence around the town clock like they've done the last couple of times when they get rid of us. They will, and just to go over what we had agreed upon in past times when we felt that we might be stopped at the town clock, then we had then suggested we go over to the post office if it's sealed off at the town clock and serve there. And then if we're in a situation where it looks like, so we may, that one meal may get shut down, that first meal, and I think, you know, maybe people would go, oh, you know, no one wants to get arrested at that meal, but people, it would be great if people took photos of the cops doing it video of the cops doing it, and then that way we can go on social media the next day or that night and mobilize for the next day. And there's a lot of people, not only like Eagle, there's a ton of our friends that are on probation or parole that cannot get arrested. And so, like when I got arrested at the garage, all my support basically was in legal jeopardy and had to leave. So, which is, I don't want people to, end up
Risk it,
a year in San Quentin because they were trying to serve food on bombs. But, so anyway, so it seems like part of the reason of having this meeting in advance of actually potentially being shut down is to go over some potential logistics that then we have to agree upon. And so, what in the past, what we had, another thing that we could, so in San Francisco when they were arresting us, we had a legal support team or support team. So like Eagle would be a classic. He would know the phone numbers and the birth date and what issues that the person has agreed to risk arrest need to have happen. Like do they have a dog that needs to be fed, and so on. And then we would know what was happening. Now, so the other thing that we had done in the past is that we divide the food into thirds. So if we know the next day it's likely that there's going to be arrests,
Good idea.
we'd tell the media that this is likely to happen. We would have token food, or what we call decoy food. So the one or two people that were willing to, and we don't, we wouldn't want to get, even one or two people will be enough to cause major scene. So so what would happen is they would come, they would tell you to stop, you would still serve some food. Behind the scenes, people like Eagle would be telling the rest of the people out there, don't worry, they're going to take this food and arrest that person, but we got the entire meal behind. And then what would happen in San Francisco, we'd have one or two more people risking arrest. They would be arrested, that food would be taken, and then all the rest of the food would come in. We'd wait until the cops cleared out, because typically it seemed like, in fact, that was over 1,000 arrests. The pattern always worked. And we even had the flyer on what we were going to do on our table, and it worked. So then that way there's not a riot. The people that are, it's very distressing the first time you see the cops take all the food, so it minimizes that distress. So we could have teams where in advance, we divide it up into like a support person for each person willing to risk arrest. Yeah, Paul?
I've heard this strategy before, I've heard you tell this strategy many times before. I'm not convinced that we're at the point where we need to be developing this strategy. Only one person has been arrested so far in the last 3 years, and that's you, I think. And so when a person serving a meal has actually been arrested, somebody besides you, that's when I think we need to talk about how are we going to deal with this.
I agree.
Until then, now at the meeting on Monday, I asked who's willing to get arrested. I realize now that I asked the wrong question. Who's willing to get arrested because you don't want to go serve at the Coral Street shelter? If that's the only condition, if that's the only reason they're arresting people, it's because you're at the town clock and you're not at the Coral Street shelter. Who is willing to get arrested for that reason? Who's willing to die on that cross? If that's the only condition, so I can see how you can maybe see this as one more turn of the screw, and if we give into that, they're going to turn another screw and require a permit, and turn another screw until it completely shuts down. I can understand your experience shows that is something that the bureaucracies do. But it doesn't mean it will be done that way. And so I just kind of want to put on the table that, let's take this one step at a time. And when I, got re-involved with food not bombs in about 2013, 2014, I noticed they were serving at the post office on the sidewalk. And I remembered, because that's kind of the unregulated, it wasn't at the clock tower, it was on the sidewalk because it's less regulated than the park, which is what the clock tower is defined as. And so if we're looking for trouble, let's stay at the park. If we're looking to minimize the reasons that they can pick out of their pocket of why to arrest people, I advocate for going back to the sidewalk.
Yeah. Okay.
I happen to go by the Coral Street shelter at least once or twice a week because I go gas at Costco. They ran everybody out that was in tents on that street and all around that vicinity. So I have a hard time believing, and I could be wrong, that they're gonna allow us to even feed over there.
People are hanging out all over the place.
Yeah, so then,
Not-
and then Joe?
I just want a question here. I mean, I hear what Paul's saying. I don't have any problem with serving at the Coral Street Shelter. I'd love it if we were using their fucking kitchen. Cause they've got,
Yeah, God,
but I
make
mean,
it.
but I'm just, is that on the table that, I mean, I'm not saying we should, I'm just saying, are they saying they will allow us to serve there? Or, I mean, I'm getting the impression
How
from
much
Paul
more legal
that
is it
they've
to serve
offered
there
that to
than-
us.
That's what I just heard you say
Is that-
earlier this
Yeah,
meeting.
Okay, I want to make a point. Phil Kramer has a shitload of money. If he wants to open a kitchen at Coral Street, he should. I don't want to volunteer for some guy making $300,000 a year to do work for him. So one of the issues of Food Not Bombs is that we are not a charity. That's the third principle of Food Not Bombs. That we are dedicated to taking nonviolent direct action to change society so no one has to live in the streets or eat a soup kitchen. And if you're in an area, if you're helping Phil Kramer for free over on Coral Street, then you are a charity. And you are not organizing because relatively few ran, you know, the purpose of being in the public is to communicate that we think that we're against the Third World War and the economy's collapsing and we want to create dialogue between homeless people and housed people in the public sphere so we can communicate these ideas. So I did 500 days in jail I could have served in San Francisco every Monday in the Armory at the ocean and avoided arrest. Not a problem. But my goal is not becoming a charity. I could join a charity. My goal personally is to change society. So that's why I prefer to be in public, not doing as the city has suggested, which is set up outside of Coral Street and to present this idea that we're a charity, and that's all that's important.
I'm wondering, why is it more legal for us to serve food on the sidewalk in front of the Coral Street location than the location at the clock tower?
Because it's not necessarily more legal, it's just that no one will see you there except for homeless
But I mean,
people.
so there's no legal argument.
No, it's just a matter that
The
you
city
need
will
to not be
manipulate
seen. The
their-
goal is to erase you.
The
Yeah.
city will manipulate their permit process and their own personal law around this.
Well, but they haven't already, is what I'm trying to
They
ask.
No,
they
they
do have
have.
an ord,
They
yeah, we have an
developed a permit
ordinance
process.
against us already.
So, but the permitting process, we're not getting a permit to go serve on Coral Street.
We're not
so
getting a
it would be
permit to
just
serve
as
anywhere.
illegal there as it would be at the
Cal.
clock
So
tower.
will always be somewhat illegal under the city's eyes and they will adapt their rules around
I
that.
want to bring in one more thing I know it's too late to file for a religion before this weekend. However, there is an existing religion called Christianity, which has a history of serving people on the street, so to say, and I happen to be raised as one, so if I get arrested, that will certainly be my defense.
Well, I have more to say on that, that's a good thing, but Cal, why don't you say something?
I purely have a clarifying question here.
Yes.
Has the city said that if we serve out of Coral, they are good with that? And if not, have they offered any alternative spot?
Okay, they have been for the whole pandemic, coming, when they try to shut us down, Jones and the head of the fire, Sergeant Jones and them said, well, okay, you can serve at Coral Street. And they said, we'll even build you a kitchen over there and everything, won't it be wonderful? And so I said, okay, go bring that in writing. But it's still, from the perspective of Food Not Bombs, the reason, for instance, Houston Food Not Bombs is continuing to get arrested is because they're serving for 20 years at the library with a very public location. And the city made a permit process that you could serve under a freeway over Cloverleaf in an abandoned construction yard next to the police precinct. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that. Our goal is to change society by being in public and being in a place where both the housed and unhoused can gather together to so that both communities can see the humanity in each other, and that we are organizing against war and poverty, And being under a freeway doesn't work in that
So is
regard.
that a no though? No, the city never directly said you can go to Coral Street?
No, they keep saying we should go to Coral Street. So the line that cities use in San Francisco and also we won a federal lawsuit and saying that serving free food is a First Amendment right in a federal court. And it's a really beautifully written by Judge Jordan decision. So which is very related to what you're saying. So then Elise,
Thank you very much. I just want to give a point of history. For years and years in the city of Santa Cruz, there were 2 meals a day served out at Coral Street, in the kitchen that we're talking about. They were free meals for anybody who wanted to show up and eat there. Anybody could show up, rich or poor, you didn't have to show an ID, nothing. They staffed the kitchen. They paid the staff, they served the food, and people ate twice a day. Okay, for years and years. I attended many times, I ate there, so did Marv. And I'll just say this, what they're trying to do is exactly what Keith is saying, okay? They're trying to make it look like they're offering something substantial in their military industrial complex where the homeless are actually dying. And I think we should revisit Ward Churchill, excellent book, Indians Are Us, on genocide, because if you start to read it, you really start to see that we, Americans here, are being put out of their jobs, put out of their homes, not able to rent, have to live in cars, have to die on the streets, because they are refusing to service the people as much as to go have us fight their wars again and again and again. So I don't want to go on and on, but they used to pay people here. That's one of the reasons that Santa Cruz has a reputation of being, oh, just so merciful and kind, and we just give too much to the homeless. This is not true.
yeah,
Okay,
Thank
so
you so much,
I don't want us to go to Coral Street.
yeah.
And not even think about it, because that's their game.
When we went to City Hall a week or so ago to set up and were confronted by the police department, they did not, nor would they say where we can set up. What they told us was where we may not set up. Simple as that.
Yeah.
We went back to the clock tower and set up, and they left us alone. But I could not get them to tell us the clock tower was an acceptable place to set up. Nor did they mention Coral Street.
Correct, yes. No, Drew.
Okay. Yeah, I'm remembering it a bit differently, Eric. I remember what you're saying, but there was more to it.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, the police said that we could not set up anywhere in any city property within the county of Santa Cruz. I reminded, remember when I had to speak through you because the cop said, don't speak to me direct, speak through him? It was kind of cuckoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I told him, I reminded him that we had a memorandum of understanding with the city of Santa Cruz, through the mayor, that we are allowed to serve at the clock. And then he just gave it up and said, well, go where it's worked for you in the past.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct.
But I have it, I just want to have a question. Am I correct, accurate in remembering in the meeting on Monday, it being mentioned that the city was wanting to prevent us from advertising our cause to a public display of our banners as well?
No, they don't want you to be visible. So if we chose to serve, and that's been an ongoing struggle. That was part of the reason why they didn't want us to be at the clock tower at the beginning of COVID, and they wanted us to be down in the benchland.
Okay, I thought it might have been just recently brought up again, that, they didn't want us to present ourselves as a cause.
Yeah, even if we had, they don't want us to be there publicly.
Yeah.
And if banners or no banners,
All right.
yeah.
But they didn't specifically say no banners.
No, they mentioned
Okay, I
nothing
don't know
like
where I
that.
got that from.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they do take the banner, usually when they arrest you, the first thing they take is the banner.
Uh-huh.
So that has been a tradition for 35 years now.
I work on the Housing Matters Coral Street campus, and they're working with the city to redevelop the whole Coral Street area, both sides of the street. They had a planning and design session where people all came and gave input on different development scenarios. But I wouldn't necessarily close the door on it, out of hand. What if, for example, the River Street shelter's been sitting there empty for about 2 years now? So if that were a kitchen, and we were allowed to maybe even have some dining in there and some dining out on the corner of Highway 9 and Highway 1, with a big food not bomb sign out there, that would capture more attention than any other site in the county.
No way, because who would go, what tourist or random person would go, oh, I see a sign there, I'll go around the corner into this homeless ghetto, and why doesn't Phil do it? He's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, let Phil do it.
I guess thinking about the River Street shelter sitting there empty has been making me crazy
Yeah,
for a while.
well, then he should open it.
Do you mean the Revley Family Shelter?
What's that?
Do you mean the Revley Family?
No,
No,
it's
all
for
River Street
single
shelter.
people.
Oh.
They don't like single
Santa Cruz's
people.
emergency shelter.
Wait a
Exactly.
minute.
A lot of
Yeah,
years.
so no, I mean, hiding ourselves in a homeless ghetto is not a very good way to organize for
I'm just
social
thinking about
change.
that whole
And
corner.
they create their own rules, and people want to come and eat and feel a sense of freedom and dignity, which I'm proud of Drew for giving them that. River Street Shelter, it's almost turned into militant. I've been over there, they got a guard gate there. Oh,
It
no.
has its own entrance on the.
Yeah, they
on
got
the-
different rules and regulations, and like this lady back here said, they don't let single people go over there.
Yeah.
Well, that's just
Yeah,
fine.
If
so
I could
we-
just chime in, one problem about going in there is that if you're homeless, you do have to show ID to get into the Housing Matters complex. So people who don't have an ID would not be able to eat if it were located inside of there, that's for
Food
sure.
not bombs not
The
discriminating.
shelter has its own
Yeah,
entrance.
yeah, why would we want to hide ourselves? I just don't understand. How are we going to organize
I don't
for
see it
social
as hiding
change?
at all.
So we've had it like for 40 years, a discussion on, because governments have repeatedly like wanted us to serve indoors someplace and just go away and not be seen. So, and right now we're about to enter World War III. We're going to start having our kids killed in Europe, and then right after that, we're going to start having ourselves killed here, right? That is, the likelihood of that not happening seems to be growing slimmer and slimmer per day. The other thing is we have an economic collapse occurring, where we just thought 25 million people were laid off. 25,000 people were laid off in the tech industry in February. So that's one area. Then on the permit issue, in San Francisco, we stupidly applied for a permit, and they used that as a means of control. So we eventually got a federal judge to order the city to give us our environmental health permit, and they immediately took they maneuvered things to take it away. Because the goal is not permits, the goal is to make sure we are serving food where we have, no one will ever see us, and no one will ever know we have a point of view, and that we basically are silenced. And so that's, these are one of the reasons I want to have these meetings about this and talk about that is there's going to be, why don't you just get the permit? There's going to be that story. And then there's like, why isn't it all you want to do is feed the homeless? That's what they told us at Lot 27 when Jones came over and said, well, we'll just build you a $2 million facility over on Coral Street, which we knew was never the case, but they were trying to get the people that we're serving, who are goodwill people who don't know the politics and don't know all the logistics and history and what is going on, what the goals of the state are. They go, oh well, maybe we'd take a $2 million building over on Coral Street. So
Which would never happen.
it would never happen. And say if they give us a permit to be at the town clock, which that's the second, so they gave us a cease and desist, and then they made a law about having a permit to be at the town clock, and then the state of California made a permit that made it easier to share free food, which we had a statewide Food Not Bombs gathering, and we all agreed we would refuse that permit because it meant you had to have it. For most, we were one of the few chapters in the state that had a commercial kitchen to cook out of at that time. Now, so then what they did to Santa Monica Food Not Bombs to shut them down was to say, oh, the Take Back Santa Cruz, Santa Monica harassed the Presbyterian Church into kicking Food Not Bombs out, so then we didn't have a commercial kitchen, and then that legitimized getting rid of Food Not Bombs. So,
What I used to see when I was younger was, I used to see a lot of elders out there educating us, recruiting us, holding teach-ins at places like this, by the way, of which I've been to hundreds, by the way, I feel. And what I think we need to consider is, when we look at our numbers, and many people have brought this up, it was brought up again at the film, great film here, about how the war in Vietnam was pretty much stopped by activists like Keith and many others interrupting the draft. Many people here were probably involved in that. We're not doing that now. And any collective organization that I have ever seen succeed must recruit, must educate people, agitate, bring people in. We need the young people who are up on campus who are being completely propagandized.
in each city, Tampa, all the cities where Food Not Bombs gets arrested over this exact issue of permits and be told to share food where no one will see you, which has always been the core of in Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, San Francisco, Arcata, so on. What the initial arrest, if there's an arrest, so now all it would take is one arrest. Look at all the people, how much attention from my getting arrested at Garage 10 was huge. So if there's one arrest, you start pulling in, in Orlando, we were pulling people from all over the state of Florida to come up and get arrested. So
That's a redundant conversation though, unless we have somebody raise their hand to get arrested. If we have a zero, that's
no,
not even a
I'm of course
possible
going to get
conversation.
arrested. I said, no way I'm not going to get, no way I'm going to let them silence 45 years of my life. They're not getting away with that. So if I'm the only one out there serving and only one getting arrested, I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to set up, you know. But we're sure, and there's many people there at the Huff meeting. There was 4 or 5 people that raised their hand that were willing to risk arrest. And
I did.
yeah.
I was arrested.
Yeah. So it's
in
yeah.
Carlton
Yeah, me too. I'm hard to carry off.
Person
Yeah.
in that tent, and they put me in that truck and handcuffed me, and then eventually they gave me an option and said, you could come with us and we do the paperwork, or you can get a ticket and you go to court. I took the court ticket, but I was arrested for nothing.
Yeah.
I was sitting outside a homeless person's tent who was very sick, and the sheriff wanted me to go away and not record him. So I had my little phone, I tried to record the arrests they were doing for him. They turned on me instead, let him go, and arrested me instead.
So yeah. So yes.
So,
Yeah, Joe.
no big deal.
I'm feeling kind of frustrated here, and I'm agreeing with everything, the larger things about what we need to do and da. But I would love to see some concrete stuff.
Yeah.
Are we, I don't think we should be serving up in Pogonip Highway 9 for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's out of sight, right?
Yeah.
It's more out of sight than Coral Street, I think we can agree.
So I'm sorry, Joe, just to be clear, there's 2 projects. So our Pogonip thing is the reproduction of our benchlands thing. That's all that is. That's all, then that will be a second.
That's out of sight.
Yeah, let me explain again. So the benchlands was out of sight, but we delivered food every week to the benchlands. It wasn't our meal. So this is a separate agenda, the Pogonip, which is just reproducing what we did at the benchlands at the Pogonip. So that's unrelated to serving food at the town clock. They're 2 different, completely different concepts.
Just a
So
distribution.
just to make it clear, that's the next part of the agenda, not this part of the agenda. This part of the agenda is being public at the town clock or at the post office. And then we're gonna move into how do we reproduce the benchlands food delivery to the Pogonip. So there's 2 separate things. Is that clear?
Well, yeah, but the thing is, I'm stuck in the middle here, because first of all, I've got food at my house that I need to serve, right?
Right.
And I don't see them as 2 separate things, rightly or wrongly. I see as we want to be visible, we want to feed people, and I mean, the Pogonip thing is a fucking disaster, as we know. And I'm not sure that I really want to support it, because I don't think that that's leading to societal change. I think if we want to be visible, we should be visible. I totally agree with that. But I'm willing, you know, I'm going to be cooking this Sunday. God knows what they're gonna do. I'm willing to be arrested. Somebody, hey, better drive my car away, because if it gets towed, I will be very pissed off. I mean, I'm willing to be arrested, but I don't really want.
I'm willing to do mutual aid to anybody who gets arrested. I can drive
But
your
I mean,
cars away,
So
feed your
I wanna
cows.
settle the two things. Next Sunday, okay, as far as I know, it's just a regular Food Not Bombs meeting. I'm gonna show up, Drew's gonna serve it, we're gonna have tents ready, blah, 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 blah.
Everything should be
Okay.
exactly the same.
So,
Correct.
but we've already started hauling food to Pogonip. Don did it the other day.
Correct.
And there's some real problems with that. Maybe we wanna keep doing it. I'm not making the decision, I'm just saying, we really wanna look at that and think, I mean, I just wanna put out there that it's possible that if we're really gonna try to support those people, we should support them at Coral Street. And be doing our town clock thing. I'm just
Well,
as
maybe
a
that's an
possibility.
idea, yeah.
Just because,
But let's separate those two because there's a lot of potential logistics that might go with the Pogonip thing, and let's just currently focus on the concrete aspects of the town clock or post office.
Just real
yeah.
quick, if you've got 5 people that are willing to be arrested, hopefully that doesn't happen, but if you anticipate that, it's good if we organize somehow that those people are there every Saturday and Sunday in the case that, you know, they do come and there's only one person there.
Correct.
Good point.
Yeah, so that's, we probably want to set up a schedule like that, crypt.
You know, I feel like getting arrested is it's an awful big defensive policy, and it doesn't really serve you. And I think a lot of people don't want to really be on the other side of trying to explain what you want. I think one of the things I'm seeing here, and I'm listening to everything, is I think you want to separate your two organizations. I think you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. You got to be clear on what you want. I think that on the educational part that's been mentioned, I think Brave and Free is a great way to farm people in to that you've already started with Kathleen and Diane, and use that as the educational portion for all the stuff that's going on with the digital wallet and Davos and all of the new framework that's being put around us to enslave us. And that being said, so that's your creative educational portion. And the other portion is your ability to be a food organization and perhaps be in a cooperation, a cooperative thing with hopefully a grantor or a sponsor. That's a big one. But maybe you could go underneath the umbrella of something like Center for Spiritual Living, or what Joe was saying here. I think, you know, going back and revisiting that is really important. But I definitely think your messages and your branding should be kind of kept separate, because people that want to be fed, that's a big elephant in the room to take care of anyway. And you're solving a problem that the city doesn't want to deal with. And you're already a champion in that area, Keith. You've been a champion in that area. So I think if we can find a way to, yes, feed people safely so they don't get arrested, and also educate people so that, you know, they can be a part of that educational process. I think you got to do some great technical writing and then figure this out.
Yeah. And then it would be great if we could do the logistics of Saturday and Sunday, and the potential of being arrested, and have that nailed down so we know. And it might not be this Saturday and Sunday, but just so that we have an idea of what it is we're potentially going to do. And I definitely would never separate out. There's definitely no problem about being arrested at all. As far as, I see no reason to be a charity. I'm not interested in being a charity. I did 2 years in jail for the right to share free food. I'm not going to be told by a government, you don't need permission to do what's right. It's a First Amendment protected activity. They have no business telling us what to do. That's just the way life is.
Yeah.
That's our power, is to be autonomous from the state.
I'm James. Where's the logical location? It seems like it really must be public. It seems like there's lots of options to do that. You know, thinking about the long-term solutions, folks should become aware of who and what Fred Keeley represents, who and what Zach Friend represents, who and what Manu Koenig represents, and who and what Carlos Palacios represents. Folks should be aware of what the previous police chief, Andy Mills, was able to accomplish. I was told that one could find out what he accomplished in San Diego. But from San Diego, he went to Eureka. And it was very clear what he established in Eureka, and that's what he basically did here. So moving forward, you know, I have personally seen Andy Mills do some very beautiful things, but there's a balance to that. So anybody can research an article that he put out 5 to 7 weeks ago. He is now the police chief in Palm Springs. He described the logistical situation of what they were going to do with a certain percentage of the recalcitrant homeless there. There is currently legislation that's being suggested that may pass into a law on what to do with certain aspects of society. If that is passed on even the homeless, all bets are off.
Do you mean cared
Because, no, because it's just an example of what could be done. So we should maybe think about what are the big solutions, and if I were to close on what I was saying, and if I were to make an observation that I love to be proved wrong, but I think one of the things that I wasn't hearing often enough with food not bombs, particularly in the literature, is that everyone in the community is invited to come down and share a meal.
Exactly.
Because if that were really propagated, we would get random people from the community to experience just a relationship. And what I could say further is stuff's about to get really difficult in the United States. And individuals could really learn a lot from the people who have been doing just fine with less. So thank you.
Quickly to weigh in on that, there was a woman last week who showed up who was in a house and said, "Oh, is it okay if I join in?" And I was like, "Of course, everyone's welcome here."
Nice.
Yeah,
But, you know, so I think that's great to try to promote that to people, you know.
that's
word
right.
of-
We don't
Outreach,
discriminate.
outreach is the lifeblood of organizations.
We
We
don't
need to be
discriminate.
outreaching to the community, to homeless people, to potential activists, to students. We need to be doing so much more outreach than we're doing. And there's no reason why we don't have hundreds of people on our telephone list to help us with these actions, except that we don't do enough outreach.
This could be a scenario, one proposed scenario. So, and then we can build off of it and so on. We could have a stable of people like Laura and like me and the others that are willing to risk arrest. And what happens when if you're 65 or older, what happens is they handcuff you and they take you to the emergency room at Dominican, they give you a health checkup, and then they take you to the jail. That could be, you'll be in there, you'll know everybody in the jail, so that's not a problem. And then you will, and you'll be in the holding cell, which is a really nice holding cell because it's got actually windows to the outside. And they fingerprint you, they do biometrics of your face, they do it won't be felonies. If it's felonies, you get the DNA swab. And then you wait like probably 5 to 10 hours till they fingerprint you on this machine. And then you wait another 3 or 4 hours till they finally call your name. And then they'll give you back your property. If you brought cash with you, they're going to write you a check for the amount of cash you have. And then you'll been given a ticket, and then you would have to appear roughly in 30 days to court. Now, Robert Norris, he likes to do, I want to see him agitate right now, which is some kind of thing, right? So you can do that. I've never done that. So anyway, that. And my suggestion is that people don't yell at the cops, be polite, so on, and then just go through that. Now, people videotaping that and photographing that, I have already set up in the background, like news outside of Santa Cruz, because Santa Cruz news will probably not cover it.
Water it down.
Yeah, if they write anything at all, which is pretty unlikely, but they might write something about how evil we are and we should have just got the permit and blah 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 blah. And we offered them a place, blah, 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 blah. You know, it'd be like that if the local media does anything. But we want to get media outside the area, you know, media outlets that are not linked to Santa Cruz.
Quick question, what would the ticket be for?
And it would probably be for trespass and maybe failure to obey a police officer and maybe violating a permit process of some sort. So that's the kind of thing.
They don't read your Miranda rights, is that okay?
They've never read, I have not had my Miranda rights read yet.
I thought they're supposed to read that.
I don't think it makes any, no, they don't care. I mean, I've been arrested over 200 times. I've never had my rights read. I've never had any rights.
I know.
So, yeah.
So is the point of arrest going to be when they show up to bust the meal at the town clock and they come and start grabbing everything and taking everything away and putting up fences? That's the first time that we're likely to face arrest.
Yeah, well, the thing is that on the first day when they do it, we probably don't want to risk arrest on that exact moment because we won't be set up. That will be the alarm that lets us know the next meal is the risk arrest meal.
Gotcha.
That way we don't have to worry about Drew, for instance, being just caught off guard and getting arrested. And my suggestion, what we agreed to do last time, was we just moved over to the post office.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would come over there and do the same thing, right? But at least we'll know.
Are they taking all the serving equipment?
Yeah, they usually will take the tables and
Okay.
Could you just clarify for me what you think is gonna happen or how we're gonna deal with that? I'm just a little confused.
yeah, so my suspicion, if what they've done in the past is any indication, is that they will come with a cease and desist order.
Okay.
And the media will already be called locally. And so every time this has happened in the last 3 or 4 years, I get the cease and desist order in email. They hand out cease and desist orders to the people at the serving, and you know, wherever it is, at Lot 27 or at the town clock, wherever we've been. Then they set up the fence around the town clock, and I guess when they did that, they were arresting forcing everybody that was living up against the post office into a triage cage, and then they fenced that area off, and then they fenced off the Bank of the West on that side, right? And then they fenced in also that little part.
And do they also take our food and our serving pots and utensils then?
No, then in the past what we've done is just get all that out of the way that first time.
So we get everything out of the way and we sort of avoid arrest the first time.
Right. And we take videos and photos so that it gets really good on social media for the next meal that we serve.
Okay.
So if it's on a Saturday, we'll put it out on social media and everything, and then people would come to the next day. We would have, of all these people that have volunteered to risk arrest, we probably want to diminish, we would divide the food into small amounts at the first, and it's best to have 2 people get arrested together. It's also good to have 2 people of the same gender get arrested together. And then the next arrest, have 2 more people get arrested, rather than hundreds of people getting arrested, or every single person that can get arrested, because you need backup arrest for the next time.
So should we plan to have a meeting after the police show up the first time that same night, just to be a little more organized?
It would be good if we did, yeah.
Okay, sorry James, that's all I
And it may be the parking lot here as opposed to inside here, because we might not be able to rent the space immediately, but we'll see.
You know, it seems like there's some history here. For example, what laws are these cease and desist orders based upon? Are they based upon something that's actually valid? Otherwise, they can be prosecuted for wrongful arrest and all kinds of stuff. They're setting themselves up for a big lawsuit, and it just seems to me if this has happened to many people for lots of time, like years and years, that somebody would have figured out a remedy to stop this shit from happening.
Exactly.
So what laws are valid about these cease and desist orders.
I do
Okay.
know that the city worries about a First Amendment lawsuit because they've mentioned that.
Yeah, so we
Thanks for telling me that.
we will probably file a civil rights lawsuit as we did in all other cases. But you need to have harm, so you have to get arrested first, and then you have harm, then you file your federal
But
lawsuit.
you already got arrested. You've been harmed. Where's your lawsuit as the example? I'm just asking.
Well, because that was a one-off. If it's gonna be so here's the law that they're gonna use, that they can use in this situation specifically.
Okay.
Is the city council passed an ordinance that you had to have a permit to serve food at the town clock, and you could only do it 4 times in a 30-day period.
Wow.
Right? So that's their ordinance. And so what the indication of the article in Overlook was that they're gonna now enforce all the laws they've been ignoring, including that one. Yes.
Is that law apply to everywhere in city property or just to the town plots?
It's interesting, it did say specifically the parks and the town clock and parks. And that's why the post office is a little, it's a kind of a no person's land in a slight way, but they still could, so they can't use the park law. They made the town clock a park so they could do this even before Food Not Bombs. Yes.
So, just for people's information, I've had pretty decent attendance the past 3 years in the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors, and they've probably rubber stamped about 70,000 pages of new legislation.
Yeah.
70, it's very common for it to be 1,400 pages. It's been as little as 700, it's been as much as 2,700 pages they're rubber stamping in a 2-week period.
Yeah.
So the city doing an ordinance like that, I think people need to learn how to stand up to those criminals.
Yeah, well, we all
And I'm
went
being
down and
polite when I say
protested it and
criminals.
everything, and then they passed it unanimously.
For those of us who aren't there when the police move against the town clock, how are we gonna find out it's happened and it can mean?
In that case, I think we do have to announce emergency meeting at Research Center for Nonviolence, threat of arrest coming tomorrow.
So if there actually is an ordinance that said that no group can serve food more than 4 times in a month, why doesn't Food Not Bombs change its name like a chameleon and just tell them to fuck off?
Okay, I will go over that.
No, I want to know.
Yeah, okay. So, in all the long history of this, we have done every imaginable thing, and they don't care. So in San Francisco, you didn't need a permit for a picnic in Golden Gate Park if it was under 25 or less people. So what we did was we set up all these blankets throughout the park, and we had all of our plates and cups and everything marked 1 through 25, and then we had it all over, and I think we only had 52 people arrested that day. So yeah, we tried a lot of things. Then there was the selling the food,
Food bucks.
the penny thing, right? So we had that, we went through that. Where, it's not free, we're not sharing free food, we're selling it for a penny. We handed pennies to everybody, and so we've tried every kind of trick. They don't care about the law. Yes.
I've been hearing that the people of Pajaro, River Valley, and Watsonville are being flooded out. I haven't watched the news, that these people don't really have homes. A lot of them are farm workers. I mean, maybe we should consider also doing a Food Not Bombs or creating one there, because why isn't the government helping these people?
So just so you know, the people supporting them emailed me looking for hot meals. We are burned out, and we don't have a kitchen,
Sure.
and we don't have the logistics to deal with it. So
No, but how about another chapter?
Right?
yeah, so
find people.
Well, we're working with Barras and Nidos to bring them food
Okay.
because we just don't have the thing right now to deal with it.
The main people that are helping is Direct Aid for the Pajaro Farm Workers, is a organization called Compensina Womb Justice. And that is ran by Maria Ramos.
Yeah, but then still, it was those organizations that were frantically emailing us.
They're trying to get to $200,000. They currently have $131,470. They're trying to get to the point where they can donate at least $500 to each family, because they say hundreds of people living in their cars. It's inhumane, and
So once we are alerted to the fact that we could potentially be arrested, then we meet, we discuss, we divide up into who's going to be support. We decide like who tomorrow would get arrested. The 2 people that would be willing to do that. We would make sure that their support people, we knew everything about whether they had a job that needed to be called, that they have medicine that needs to be worked about. So there'll be like a buddy. There'll be like one support person for each person risking arrest, and they will handle all that. And then we will immediately take all the photos of the arrest and the video of the arrest, and we'll put it out on social media like crazy. And we will announce when the next day of risking arrest would be, and then it would be that pattern. And my thought was then what we've done once they start arresting us in San Francisco, which might be wise to do here, we stopped bringing out the tables. You know, we put the food in white buckets that we don't care about losing, and we have it set up so that, you know, the people that are not willing to risk arrest kind of stay a little bit back. The people that are willing to, so it ends up being rice and beans typically at that moment, right? And then you have a few plates and enough plates and cups to deal with the amount that's in those 2 buckets. And then you bring out 2 more buckets and 2 more people willing to, or another person. It could even be 1 person in the first wave because we have not a lot of people. And then the second person in the second wave of arrests. And then everybody comes back out and starts, you know, then we might even have in the hotel trays and stuff, we'll have to see how it goes. Maybe there becomes a pattern. Then we serve the rest of the meal after that. And then we just have, that would be, and then we should get a lot more volunteers willing to risk arrest from the campus and everything at the next meal. And then so that we'd have to have another meeting, which fortunately for us will be on Monday here, that we can advertise. And then the people that are like, it really blows people's mind when they see people are getting arrested for feeding people. So then we'll start to have a bunch of people. Then we'll do the same pattern for the next week and the next week. And it could be because it's so hardcore that this city gives up. Also, this pattern I'm just describing might not happen for a month from now, 2 months from now.
I would appreciate if you would produce some quarter-page flyers that just have, once this cycle starts, once the arrests start, that I can hand to people.
Yeah.
I know the social media is the rule of the day, and that works the best for the most and all that, but I would still appreciate, especially a quarter page, because they're a lot easier for people to handle. They can just stick them in their pocket. But just to talk just a little bit about what we're doing and why and so forth.
Correct.
And that we are looking for more volunteers, that people don't have to get arrested. If people are interested, that would be great, but that we are also looking for support people, just stuff like that. And that we are planning to have organizing meetings here.
Yeah.
So that people can, 612 Ocean Street, the Resource Center for Downbound. So
Yeah. And then the next thing that always is a good idea is after you do that, 30 days from then, you got a trial or an arraignment, right? So then you have a rally at the courthouse on that day, and you bring a bunch of people out for that. And then it's just this endless pattern like that until they stop. And then, you know, every city we've succeeded in every single city. And then we'll probably do the civil rights lawsuit. We'll use Judge Jordan's argument in the Fort Lauderdale case, which I will post that again on social media. I'm not going to print it out because it's like 35 pages. I could make a copy of it, but it is beautiful. It was like Food Not Bombs went and wrote an opinion themselves. It is the most amazing opinion.
oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, it got a lot of publicity
Please
because
do.
it's such a beautiful.
Please email.
I just want to reiterate that if a judge wrote such a beautiful document, that there's an outline of what to use in this court system. Because this is slightly off topic, but it seems like for the most part I could talk about 12 subjects where they're waiting for some DA to actually not be a George Soros puppet and actually do something. But since whoever the judge was in Florida, people should use that.
Yeah, it was a really good.
And that could be something that could be given to law enforcement or whoever to say, hey, this is nothing personal, but here's a lawsuit that was won and you guys are facing the same lawsuit. So are you sure you want to do this? Maybe you want to have your sergeant come and arrest us.
I don't
He
think
can be
the-
responsible.
I don't think the police really care, it's more the government, city officials that care. And they did pay all the Food Not Bombs kids in Fort Lauderdale tens of thousands of dollars. The city was ordered to pay over $1 million total for maybe nearly $2
So
million.
I think you're diminishing the actual importance of what actually happened. And it needs to stop at law enforcement, because unfortunately, they are representing the corporate citizens, and that's who the politicians are. They're not representing us. We're the peasants. They don't give a fuck about us.
Yeah, my experience though,
So-
telling them about the law, they just like, fuck you, and then move on.
So the DA here in this town is corrupt?
Yeah, this is all run by the mafia and Google and all that. There's no possible way to
See,
get.
what they do, they actually feel like you're being judged right in front of your property. They're sentencing you, they're holding up paraphernalia that doesn't look like drug-making material, it looks like a water pipe, and they're announcing it out in public that there's drugs being made here, and I can sue on that because that's entrapment and false claims.
Yeah.
That if they hold up evidence, that cop, that rookie cop that's just been trained, like, hey, I found all the evidence, and he kind of had a jar of white powder, which turned out to be amino acid, and he said, look, he made some drugs, and it's an amino acid you buy in the health food store. So that's how dumb that stupid thing to do in public, in front of your house.
Yeah.
The neighbors are all standing outside, say she's having drugs made in that house.
Yeah, they'll
And they're
do
not.
that. We had it at Food Not Bombs in San Francisco. There would be the undercover cops would run. They'd be holding a baggie of white stuff. They'd run up to the line where people are standing waiting in line, stick the white stuff in some poor guy's pocket while he's standing there, and then throw him on the ground and arrest him for crack. They did that all the time.
Yes.
I'll put a link to the federal court. Fortunately, it's on the court's website.
35 pages.
35, 40 pages.
Does anyone want more?